Good morning and welcome to Prakash Vidyalaya, where students love to learn. My dear students of class 6, today we are going to do the third chapter of history. In the earliest cities. Let us see which were the earliest cities. We are actually fond of knowing about the ancient things, the past, the oldest of the monuments, the oldest of the relics. Now let us see. Here in this chapter, we are going to read the story of Harappa. Very often old buildings have a story to tell. When you see one of the oldest building in the town, you ask whose it is and who was staying here, because it is in such a condition. The architecture is different, the style is different. So, very often old buildings have a story to tell. Nearly 150 years ago, when railway lines were being laid down for the first time in Punjab, engineers stumbled upon the site of Harappa in the present-day Pakistan. To them, it seemed like a mound that was rich source of ready-made high-quality bricks. So they carried off thousands of bricks from the walls of the old buildings of the city to build railway lines. Many buildings were completely destroyed unknowingly because they never knew what was there. So as the archaeologists went on digging, they found the site about 80 years ago, and it was the first city to be discovered, which was developed 4,700 years ago. And when archaeologists found this site, they realized that it was one of the oldest sites in the subcontinent, as this was the first city to be discovered. All other sites from where similar buildings and other things were found was described as Harappan cities. These cities were developed around 4,700 years ago. And these cities had some special constructions, some particular prominent constructions, which is still a great surprise to historians today. The city was divided into two parts, smaller but higher part, which was called citadel, and the larger and lower part, which was called lower town. And it were all made with burnt bricks. That means 4,700 years ago, the people then, those civilization, they knew the art of making burnt bricks for constructions. Citadel had a special building like a great bath, storehouse and fire altars. They knew the use of fire, they knew how to store grains. Great bath was used for special occasions, and this great bath was a landmark and one of the most profound findings of the historians. And the houses had 1 or 2 stories, network covered drains. The drains were completely covered. It's not like in our place open and infectious. Special provisions for cleaning of the drains were also there. Life in the city was probably by the rulers looking into planning. It was a well planned city. The streets were north to south and east to west. Scribes prepared the seals and wrote about everything in the manuscripts. The scribes are the person who write books, and books were not there. They used to write on palm leaves and used to make seals of clay or terracotta. Craft persons worked in shops. There were different people who belonged to different professions. People undertook long distance travels for raw material to distant lands, which was observed that they had great trade and commercial importance. New craft in the city. Stone cells, metal objects were found which throw light on the craftsmanship of those people. It shows that they were great skilled people in those days. Beads, weights and blades are also unique finds. Beads and seals making was a very common practice. Evidences of weaving was also found at Mehergarh, because we can find pieces of torn clothes there. Specialists enjoyed a prominent place. And in search of raw materials, people travelled far and wide. Some raw materials were locally available, but some like copper, tin, gold, silver and precious stones had to be brought from distant lands like Oman, Afghanistan and Iran. Gold was also found in Karnataka. For the people in the cities living in countryside, they grew crops and reared animals. Animal rearing and cultivation was a prominent and a practice. Wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseed and mustard were major crops grown by the Harappans, because we find seeds of this kind in the excavated places. Plows were used for turning soil and planting seeds. Plows were found earthen clay toys, terracotta toys were also found. Provisions for irrigation were also made by storing water, collecting fruits, fishes, and hunting was also practiced. This we come to know from the seals and the sculpture designs and drawings made. The city of Dholavira had ample fresh water and fertile soil. This is in Gujarat. The city was divided into three parts, each surrounded by massive stone walls at the entrance. With entrances, Harappan script was carved out of white stone and inlaid in wood is a unique find. City of Lothal also is a prominent excavation. Stood on the tributary of river Sabarmati. It had ample availability of raw material like semi-precious stones. So, what a rich continent. It was an important center for making stone and cells and metal objects. The city had a storehouse and seals and ceilings have been also found here. City had a workshop for making beads. So this area was also divided into industrial area. The mystery at the end. Major changes came about around 3900 years ago. People stopped living in cities. Garbage piled up on the streets, drainage system broke. This is what were the statements given by the excavators. Views came up for this change like dried up rivers, deforestation, destruction of green cover by overgrazing, floods, rulers lost control. People might have moved to newer and smaller settlements, and some cities emerged 1400 years later, and this is how gradually the city came to an end, and might probably it was vacated and left out only to be covered underneath the soil. Thank you. Hope you have understood the city of Harappa.